Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are back for our third match of the night. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined by Flint Espil. Say hi, Flint.
Hi, everybody.
All right, we've got a matchup. We got Ryan coming back. So we had an unplanned thing. Mother Nature decided to come to Florida and wreak havoc. So hurricanes caused some issues for Ryan, and he wasn't able to play. But he's now figured some stuff out, and he's able to play some Magic tonight. So I'm very excited for that, and glad that he's doing well. But he's up against Rich Shay, so we will see what decks they have, and we're gonna figure out what they are playing tonight. So I will pull up the decks for these players. So Ryan has brought Tradewind Survival, Enchantress, and Stasis to the PSS, while Rich has Sly, Parfait Oath, and Tide Control. The Enchantress deck for Ryan has been banned, and then the Sly deck for Rich has been banned. So Flint, is there a deck you're looking forward to seeing, or do you want to make a prediction on what the players are going to bring? Uh,
I would love to see Ryan pilot the Tradewind deck.
mhm.
He's a very good Tradewind pilot. He loves the deck. It's kind of his bread and butter. Um, and I would love to see Rich pilot the blue white deck,
Okay.
the Tidestill deck, because um, I haven't seen him pilot it before.
Okay.
So I've watched him play Parfait. I've watched him play it in person from across the table as well. And I've seen way too much Parfait with the European Championships, and I'm kind of sick of the deck. Honestly, it's too slow. I hate decks like that. So I think a lot of people would love to watch Rich Shea play Parfait, but I am not among them. So I will just selfishly vote for a Stasis versus Tidestill matchup. But
Okay.
that's where I stand. What about you?
Um, I well, I do know what they're playing, but I
What do you
want
want
to
to see?
I want to see the Trade One Rider deck. I mean, that deck is awesome. So I'll put my vote in for that. But all right, let's jump to the decks. So Ryan has settled on playing da-da-da, the Stasis list. So
I knew it.
we have got a collective groan from everyone. I don't know. I think Stasis is not as like it's more viewer friendly than people give it credit for. Like I don't think it's that bad, but maybe I'm too optimistic about things. I like this deck. I think it's very powerful. I think it does something very well. It's a prison deck, and it in some senses it almost has. I won't call it a combo, but like the way it locks people out, like sometimes it feels almost like a combo. So when you have Stasis and Forsaken City, you're able to just pay that with a card from your hand every turn instead of having to make land drops. But even without the Forsaken City, you do a good job of hitting land drops or like returning them with Gush or Daze or Thwart. And there's a lot of spells that the Stasis deck can deploy when they're tapped out. So I really like the Stasis deck. I like this list, and I like what Ryan has put together. What do you think of the Mono Blue Prison list?
I think there are two kinds of people who play Stasis in this world: those who know how to play the deck and those who don't. And I love the former and I hate the latter because I think that it's the latter where you get into these matches that are really, really slow because people don't understand the lines of the decisions. Ryan, fortunately, is in the former camp, and I'm excited to watch him play it. He has a lot of experience with the deck. I think he pilots it well. I think I'm 1-1 against him when he's on Stasis. He's a solid, solid player, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with it tonight.
I do remember doing commentary over one of the matches you played Lands against Stasis, and that was a really cool match. If you
Yeah.
guys can dig into the YouTube archive, that was a pretty neat one to watch. So, the deck that Rich is playing is none other than his Tide Control. So, Flint, you got your prediction right. I feel like your batting average is just obscene. So, I swear I don't tell him. Maybe he just talks to the players like independently and just has never told me, and I'm not in on it. But I don't share what the players are playing to Flint. So, but we do see the blue white deck. So a knight of blue white is what we have. This is a little bit different than the list that Tom has. So it's a little bit more focused on the combination of Seal Cleansing than with the Parallax Tide. So it really has a more proactive game plan that it has that looming threat of just exiling all of your opponent's lands. Other than that, it has a lot of like the same overlapping cards with counter magics and Swords of Plowshares and Wrath of Gods and Humilities and those kind of things. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this one how it interacts. I know typically against like a classic blue white list, I really like stasis against it because you're able to land a Black Vice, and you do a pretty good job of protecting it against like the used to be like one or two disenchants that the deck would play. Rich has 4 Seal Cleansing, and that could maybe be enough to change the dynamic that like you can play it proactively. It answers a stasis. It answers a Black Vice. So I am interested to see how Rich's list lines up against the stasis deck. Is there anything you want to say?
I'm really looking forward to games 2 and possibly 3 after Rich gets to sideboard because I think those are going to be the real nail biters.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll jump down to the match. If you want to let our players know that they can begin, we have Ryan on the left and then Rich on the right. Ryan won the die roll. Is that correct?
He did win the Rock Lobster, Scissors Lizards,
Yes.
Paper Tiger
Yes.
matchup that they had. It was epic, folks. But in the end, when the dust settled, Ryan was the victor.
All right. Let's get this Ravenous Rats off screen and we'll bring up a stasis.
All right.
Tom says, "Hi everyone. Landstill twice in a row and now stasis first tide. What a time to be alive." I don't know. I like the blue decks. I enjoy the pacing of them a lot of times. I think they lead to interesting developments in terms of you can kind of plan out your turns. And we already see land go from the players, Coastal Tower and Island from Rich, while Ryan has 3 islands. Impulse is how Rich will kick things off, and that will resolve. Not typically a card that Ryan's interested in fighting over.
Nope.
Is it possible this comes down to decking?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that Rich really has to just sculpt his hand here because there are so many dead cards in his hand in his first game that he's got to really pick his battles really, really wisely, and not tap out and leave an opening for Ryan to land a stasis here. I think if Ryan's got a stasis and 2 counter spells as backup, he's going to be in a pretty good position, especially if one of those is a free counter. Then he could essentially pull ahead. I don't know about you, Mike, but I think whenever I watch people play stasis, the games they tend to win are games when they can land a stasis early and a black vice early. But if they land a stasis and we don't see a black vice for a long time, or it takes them a long time to land a stasis, they tend to not be as successful.
Yeah, I've actually seen some people play a very proactive stasis in sometimes and be successful with it. I know like intuitively that's not something that I tend to think to do, but because with like Forsaken City, you can pay for a stasis very early, or just like sequencing your land drops and whatnot. And I've been surprised that I've seen some good stasis players play stasis really early. But yes, I think if you don't have a Black Vice, then you're sometimes kind of spinning your wheels. You're using a lot of resources just to upkeep it, and that could be problematic. We see an early cycle of Decree of Justice that puts 1 token into play. So I don't know if that's an indication that Rich is looking just to get through more cards and hit land drops, or if he's looking to put a little bit of pressure into play to put a clock in. So.
I really like these end of turn plays from Rich, right? I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of pressure. Eventually, Ryan is going to have to do something, and then this factor fiction again. It's another opportunity for him to card filter during the end step, so Ryan can't then make him, punish him for it by landing a stasis as a follow up.
I'm a little bit surprised to see this Factor Fiction just go without any response from Ryan, because this might be a card that he's interested in fighting over. Looks like the split we have a Flooded Strand, a Parallax Tide of Forbidding, or is it Foreboding? I don't know. Forbidding Watchtower, and a... Is that a Prohibit? And then Attica Waste is deciding which pile it's going to get put into.
If he's firing off a factor fiction right now, perhaps his other cards are pretty good. I mean, what do you think? In what scenario? Or maybe they're just terrible and he's worried about getting too far behind. He's hitting his land drops. So what do you make of this factor fiction here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just play it when you can, but I don't know what he's prioritizing. I mean, like these piles, it doesn't. This doesn't seem super consequential, but I don't know. Maybe Parallax Wave is a lot better than maybe I'm. I mean, it could be something that Ryan would have to worry about.
So interestingly, he takes the Watchtower and the Tide and bins the two lands in the backdoor fiction. Hitting land drops is obviously really, really, really important in this matchup. So we have to imagine a couple other cards in his hand have to be lands.
And so the one thing is if Rich is going to try and pick a fight, he's at least going to have to like for this with his Parallax Tide. He's obviously going to have to spend 4 mana on his turn. The problem is then like if you're going to expect counter magic out of Ryan, which I think you have to assume, you need more lands to play or like to have. So basically, Rich is going to have a lot of mana in order to try and resolve this Parallax Tide. Because I think Ryan will he'd be able to play 2 and potentially 3 counter spells. So Seal Cleansing is how Rich is going to start things off. So yeah, this is a card I think you. I mean, it works great in terms of Rich's game plan. It answers all the important cards for Ryan, whether it's Stasis or Black Vice. It interacts well with Parallax Tide, and it looks like it draws out a counter spell. And Rich has no response, and then it is countered. So
Definitely a must fight over card
yeah.
there. It just does so many mean, mean things in this matchup.
All right, we do see a Stasis cast. I will note that he used a Forsaken City, cast it. I don't know if that has. I guess that means he's willing to untap it with a card and keep his mana up. Huh, maybe not. All right. All right. Upkeep is paid. We got Stasis turn number 1. All right. So how does the game progress? We're at this point because Ryan has the Forsaken City, so it's likely he'll be able to. I don't know if indefinitely is the right word, but like play, pay for it. What is Rich's game plan now that he has had a Seal Cleansing countered?
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at his list here. A follow up Seal would certainly be good. But does he have any bounce spells main?
Don't think he does.
I don't see any. So, I mean, he's not under any pressure, right? Like you mentioned. So as long as he's continuing to hit his land drops, he doesn't have to do anything. Um, I think, if he's got double seal in hand or something like that, or seal and a lot of counter magic, he might fight now.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't have multiple seals or a seal and a lot of counter magic, he's probably just going to hope to continue to hit his land drops until he gets to a point where Ryan pressures him with something like a Black Vice and then decide to make his move would be my guess.
Yeah, because if the Stasis stays in play, it's not like I don't think you ever get to the point where you're decreeing for 18 and then can get them in just one shot. So
Probably not.
uh, it's kind of just all about Ryan. Just as long as he's keeping the Stasis in play and he's able to keep Seal Cleansing off the board, I think he should be in smooth sailing. I think so. It's just when is that Black Vice going to come down? And when is Rich going to try and find a spot? I mean, Rich has done a very good job of hitting his lands. He's up to 5, 7, 10, 10 untapped lands, I think.
Oh, untapped.
Something like that. But yeah. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how because right now it looks like Ryan has opted to put a decent amount of mana. He spent a number of islands as compared to using the Forsaken City right away and trading cards to keep mana up. That's going to depend just on his hand. I mean, like if you have cards like Thwart, that the mana being tapped is much less of a liability. Bring up the Forsaken City. I always like cards like this where you on its face it just looks like. I mean, not that it's like an unplayable card because I mean it's a multicolor land. Obviously, it's a steep cost to ever use it in a fair way, but just how this interacts with stasis, I think, is just cool. How um, this deck can come about.
I've always liked the artwork too, and wanted to use it. And in one of the first versions of the Hermit Druid deck that I built, I had started with one of Z's older lists, as I've said before, and it actually, I believe, had Forsaken City in it, or one of the old versions did.
Mhm.
Because during the upkeep, I think you could tap it for mana, use the ability to untap it and tap it again, so you'd have access to, additional mana for your Hermit activations and your Croson Reclamation. But ultimately, when I was playtesting with it, it um, didn't seem like a good way to go, given just how precious every single card in your hand is when you want to win quickly. So I ended up cutting it, but
Right.
really cool card.
You see a gush from Ryan, so not only does that draw him extra cards, but like picking up 2 islands is great in the spot because it just means 2 more turns of paying for stasis guaranteed. So
Gosh, such a good card.
all right, we've got a black vice. So I think if Rich has any counter magic, I think this is something that you need to fight over. Uh,
Yeah, he's got to think about how he wants the next couple of like fights to pan out here, right? I mean, if he has the seal and some counter magic or whatever, he could decide to do this on his turn.
mhm.
He could fight over the vice itself. It'll be really interesting to see what he decides to do.
What is the counter magic? So he has 4 counter spells. Is it some number of like prohibits, right?
Yes, he has one prohibit, one mana leak, four counter spell.
Okay. Well, it looks like the Black Vice has resolved, and then Ryan went to discard. He
Yeah.
discarded an island and a daze, and so uh, looks like Rich is taking 3 damage from this Black Vice, so he's got a full grip. He does get to add a Flooded Strand, but
So Ryan also with a full grip here, four untapped mana.
like when you're playing against Stasis, I think if there's no Black Vice in play, I think sometimes you just don't want to play any spells, because that turns on a card like Thwart. It allows like it's like if it's not a relevant card, then Ryan's not going to do anything about it, and then you've used your mana. But if it is a relevant card, then like Ryan can thwart it, and then you're like if you use a seal cleansing and then that's gone, and it's like then the cards that matter are just that much fewer, and sometimes it's just better to wait it out. When they do hit the black vice, then you kind of rethink things and say, all right, I gotta hope that everything works out. That Ryan's just drawn god awful and doesn't have the answers in his hand, but I think that's pretty unlikely given how many turns and how many cards that Ryan has seen.
Absolutely. We do see a fetch from Rich down here, so he's down to 16
Okay.
to get an island, and so he's going for something. Looks like another seal.
All right. Well, so this is basically, I think, what it's coming down to. So Rich is picking this fight. He's going to play Seal Cleansing. He's going to do his best to have it resolve. And I think if it doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if Rich just packs it in because I don't think he has much of a shot if this doesn't resolve.
All right, there's a thwart.
All right.
I think I'm not a stasis player, and I give the deck a hard time because it's a prison strategy. But I really have to hand it to the interaction of all the cards. It's just such an elegant prison strategy
Mm-hmm.
with the various counter spells, the gushas, the stasis itself. I mean, it is a cool deck.
Yeah, it's cool how the pieces kind of interact. Like, I mean, like Wart picks up the islands for the stasis, but it also could put islands and cards in your hand for a card like foil. And there's just like all those little things. It just seems it's almost like I mean, obviously these cards are from different years of Magic, but it almost seems like this was like intended to be built. But yeah, all right. So we do see counterspell. So that one got Okay, yeah. So thwart was the first response to seal, and then Rich has a counterspell, which Ryan had a foil.
The Rich taking a point to go to 15 to try to counter.
Right, so he's got a good
Three,
amount of counter magic.
yeah, three and a tide left in Rich's hand here. Ryan thinking with this second counter spell. And can I just say that I very much appreciate the artwork that these two players have selected for their counter spells. We have the Arena promo, which is, as you can see here, one of my favorites. Big fan of this one. And we have the Ice Age one, which is the one I used to play a lot back in the day, and so have a very have very fond memories of.
I guess the one benefit of even if Rich does lose this counter war is he has less cards in his hand, but the problem is he's used a ton of mana, and I think his subsequent turns would just be draw go, and it wouldn't be long before he has 7 cards in hand.
This is true. So this counterspell is still in the stack, right? Ryan's deciding what he wants to do
Mm-hmm.
or not do.
I mean, I have to imagine. I guess the thing you might be worried about is a card like Mana Leak, and that could be a card that you're potentially like sequencing your cards differently. But I like you could play a foil instead of tapping mana for an Arcane Denial or something.
If he just has a Chain of Vapor, he could Chain of Vapor his own stasis
Uh,
when,
yeah.
well,
Well, it
when Rich
depends
goes to
on
break it.
yeah. Like I was okay if that yeah. I would say he could also do it in response to the seal resolving. He could just pick it up, but I guess that wouldn't do for him
No,
very good.
he'd have to do it when Rich goes to sack it.
Yeah.
I mean, Rich is obviously not going to try to destroy it until the end of Ryan's turn here. Maybe during his upkeep.
All right, so Rich has resolved a seal cleansing. Is that where we're at?
That's where we're at.
Okay, so I'm a little surprised. I'm impressed.
Is he going to boomerang his? No, what is he tapping to? Is this end of turn?
We have
Oh.
another stasis.
Oh, okay.
Well, then, I mean, there is some merit that you're just going for the Black Vice then, but I mean, it is very important for Ryan that Rich doesn't get to untap. Like keeping all this mana at bay is very powerful.
It's a little problematic for Ryan too, because now he has to pay 2 per turn. And so Rich can just wait it out.
Well, let's say he has a card like Chain of Vapor. You could Chain of Vapor targeting the Seal of Cleansing, and then Rich needs to make the decision to either activate it or let it resolve. And if it resolves, then he has the option to chain it and bounce his own stasis. Because if you're targeting your own stasis, then you're kind of just forcing the seal to get cast. I don't know what this chain is targeting. Did you see a gesture of whether it was at the stasis or the seal?
I thought he was pointing it at a stasis, but I could be wrong.
I it seemed. I mean, it seems like you would want to do it at the seal cleansing. Okay, and then so it looks like that resolved. It goes back to hand, and now he does have the option to. The problem is you have 2 stasis in play. You would need to sack 2 lands to get an untap. So I guess maybe there's not much. Yeah, maybe he doesn't need to bounce his own stasis. There's not that. You have the Forsaken Cities to upkeep them. So 1 stasis goes down. One thing to note that Ryan didn't. Okay, he's got a land drop. I was gonna say, um, he could exile the card to gain an extra mana with the other Forsaken City.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron says, "I'm not smart enough to watch this match."
Neither am I. It's fine.
I mean, pretty much it just you have to figure out a game plan of like what is important and how is it going to transpire, and then all the turns are just leading up to that one turn, and that was what we saw. And Ryan didn't counter it, but then had the answer in the form of chain of paper. So turns are flying. I think Rich has taken some damage from the black vice, but I
Yeah,
think
he's down to 10.
yeah,
And now he's down to 7.
I think maybe Rich was hoping that he would have a third land just to play around a card like Daze, and then maybe he would have went for it. But I think at this point he's probably fairly confident that Ryan has counter magic. So sure, Rich is not feeling very optimistic about about things, but yeah, he'll play it out to maybe try and cast this seal cleansing at the very last moment. I think he's at 4 right now. He'll go down to 3. This is his lastest ditch effort to cast the seal cleansing.
Lastest, ditchiest effort. Oh, I see an ATOG on the plains.
All
All
right,
right,
we see
here
the
we go.
seal cast. He's got 1 available mana. There is a Daze. Ritual Pay, and I'm guessing there's another one. Oh, are we
Foil.
foiling? Foil, discarding Forsaken City and Island. And
Foil is the card that scares me the most that Stasis plays.
And yep, that'll be game 1 to Ryan and the Stasis deck. So, all right, I'll move over to the sideboard. So this is kind of what you were looking forward to, because that was kind of what we expected for how that first game to play out. All right, the Stasis player has 2 annuls, seem very good. I can see also, I don't know if this is a Felden's Cane matchup. I can see bringing in the other Black Vice. Is there anything that looks appealing otherwise?
Let's see. So if I'm Ryan, I do love the annulls, as you said. The Black Vice.
I don't think I
Is
would
that
bring
it?
in Felden's Cane. Like, what cards are the worst here? Like, what are the cards you'd be boarding out? Maybe you could shave on like a card like 1 Daze, or maybe 2, just because the matchup kind of just devolves to the sequence that we saw, unless sideboarding changes things, and just Daze is a lower impact. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring up Rich's list to see if his sideboard. So he's got a copy of Annul. I think that comes in, and a Disenchant that could stay in the sideboard because there are 2 copies of Cutting Wish in his main.
I like Mana Short.
Mana short, mana short against. The only problem is it's not very good when they have a Forsaken City. Though I guess it could just be you're using it to make them. It's like a must counter kind of thing.
Yep.
No,
Just
I
end a
mean,
turn, you got to counter it. End
yeah,
a turn.
yeah. Otherwise, I mean, we say you got to counter it, but there are cards like Thwart and Foil where Ryan still can counter spells even when he's tapped out. But
Totally agree.
yeah,
But if you look at Rich's list,
yeah. I mean, he's got cards.
he's got
He's
4
got
swords,
swords of
2
Polishers.
humility,
Yeah,
and a Wrath of God. So
he's,
he's got plenty of cards to bring out. And Mana Short is a must counter, right? So I think that I absolutely bring in the Mana Short along with the Annul, the Disenchant, the Absorb, the Factor Fiction, the Tide.
I have a question. Is there any like wild way that Rich could get his deck to a point where he can just like always be under a Black Vice, like taking out like all the reactive and expensive cards and putting in like just stifles so he can get them out of his deck, and just hope that Ryan doesn't have a Felden's Cane in
Sounds
this,
like a
and
good
maybe
strategy.
I mean I'm saying this is like a very wild thing. Like, is that ever something you think you could consider? Like, is the matchup that bad that like that Rich would need to take these drastic measures, and would it even be feasible? I don't know either of those answers. I don't think it would be something I would do.
I
But
don't think he can get away with it with this list.
yeah,
I think if he were on a lands deck, for example, that might be a little easier.
yeah. It's always I always like to look at the off the wall things, and especially when it's like an open deck format, and you can kind of figure out exactly what's going to happen, and you can make kind of riskier or like really I'll call them big brain plays, but I don't know. Maybe it's sometimes it's just trying to be too clever. I think.
Check out the big brain on Brad. All right.
I don't know what that reference was from.
It's from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie. That's I
What?
know, I know. It's a crime, and but yeah,
Kids these days. Oh, criminy.
it's funny. The movie that I would have guessed it was from was Dodgeball. It just sounded like one of the quotes from like the announcer of why can't I think of his name? Um, the Arrested Development guy, the guy from Ozarks.
Ozark.
Yeah, Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so players are shuffling up. We are going to get things started with our second game. Let's move over. Get our life totals reset.
All right.
Do you think Rich has the tools? Because that first game was like pretty lopsided. Do you think the sideboard changes enough that Rich has the tools? Does the dynamic change enough, or do you think it's just more of the same? Ooh, there's an early black
Shots
vice.
fired. I repeat, shots fired.
It's like, do you have a seal cleansing? Because if the answer to that is no, like right here, then the game like can be just very different. That basically Ryan just needs to protect this black vice, and given how reactive Rich's deck is, he might just die to this black vice.
And I'll bet someone's got a daze.
All right, there
I bet we
is
see
a
daze
seal
here.
cleansing. There is a
Boom.
daze. Wow. Okay, this could be a very quick game.
Could be.
And Ryan just putting the pedal to the metal. He is 2 black vices.
No mercy.
No.
Strike first, strike hard. No mercy, sensei.
I don't know what Rich's life total is. It he's got a 6, a 5, and a 3, and a 2 up.
It,
So
it could be anything. It could be 365 for all we know.
He could be at 365, and Ryan still might win this game.
Oh my god.
Yeah, these turns are gonna be quick. Like, yeah, because the Rich had the 1 seal cleansing, but that daze. Yeah, and I don't fault like for Rich not playing around the daze in that spot, because as soon as Ryan has a second mana, that opens up counter spells and arcane denials, and so these.
Rich just drew it into 6 cards, right? So he had 5. So he's trying to get cards out of his hand. But he really needs to try to play something here.
His deck is not that great at like getting a bunch of cards out of his hand. The cards like Impulse and Counterspell and like Factor Fiction and Decree of Justice, and it's tough.
He's still getting shocked every. Oh my god! And the double fetch. Just going for. What's he going for? Islands here?
You know, like if it were only 1 black vice, then this game like Rich would have had a lot more time. Like he's doing a pretty good job of like staying under this black vice for a blue white deck. But it's the second one I think really puts him under pressure. But yeah, he's done a good job of not taking a ton of damage from the black vices, at least each turn. I mean, obviously he's taken 12 already, so.
Yeah, Phil. Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. So for those of you who didn't watch the PSS2, Phil had a matchup where Brian Menelakos managed to land like 2 and maybe drew the 3rd or was about to play the 3rd rack on Phil after a ton of discard, just stripping his hand in the first two turns. It was brutal. Sorry again, Phil. I still feel bad about that one. You're just watching it. We may have gotten a message. They were asking about life. and whether or not and what Rich was at before he double fetched.
Um, he said I was at. Trying to confirm his life total before he fetched. I believe. I don't know. Chat is saying 8 is correct after fetching, so I think they're good. We do have a decree of justice, so this house side. This is for 3. So the problem, it's funny, like, yeah, it's not like a mayability of the drawing because I think this might actually be a case where you didn't want the extra card because you want to get under that black vice. I don't know if these 3 tokens will be able to get there. I think these black vice still outrace pretty well. But Rich is going to do his best. He's going to attack for 3. Ryan goes to 17. A tapped lonely sandbar. And a seal of cleansing. Alright. So Rich has... He's either going to get cards out of his hand or he's going to resolve a seal of cleansing.
Yeah.
So 1 seal. Alright, we got an annul.
And Rich says, all right, give me something else to counter here. Nope, I don't
Yeah.
even need it. I'm before cards.
All right. Is there a stasis in the future? Yes, there is. But there's an null back. So, is Ryan going to fight over this?
Mm.
He's going to float a mana and then return 3 islands to cast Thwart. And so there was a counterspell from Rich, but then Ryan has foil. He discarded
That's
island
so
and
good.
I don't so
Now Rich can't place. Oh my gosh, what a match!
yeah.
This is a good stasis match.
Definitely a lot of counterspells and like that Rich was able to kind of find in I feel like a relatively short amount of time.
Curse you, Sandbar. Curse you in your tapped ways. So while we're watching this match, just as a heads up for all of you out in chat, I'm sure most of you know, but Ryan's family was right in the path of the hurricane, and they lost a lot in it. And a fellow pre-moderner and Magic Old Schooler has been posting a link to a GoFundMe for Ryan. You're not obligated to donate anything, but if you're interested, I just put it in chat. So if you've got some extra change to spare and you can send it their way, it would be really helpful. I know they lost a lot in the hurricane, so I'm sure they'd be very thankful.
Got a follow from Disco Rat. So thanks for
Hey,
joining
Disco
us.
Rat. I like that
Yeah,
name.
yeah. I just imagine the rat hanging out at the disco. Yeah. A ravenous disco rat.
Hey, which version of Disco Rat is your favorite?
Yeah.
Is it a foil Japanese Disco Rat? All right, back to the match. So we see a chain of Vapor here
That's
at
gonna
end of
allow.
turn.
Yeah, that's gonna pick up the stasis so that Ryan can untap all his mana and then replay the stasis.
And Rich back up to 4 cards now, so really just hoping to draw lands for a while and be able to claw his way back into the game.
Because if he doesn't, if he just goes brick, he takes 2 and then he'll take 4, and yeah, he'll be dead. So if the top of his deck is unkind to him, he will be dead very quickly. So we're just confirming number of cards in hand for Black Vice. Looks like Rich doesn't take any this turn, but looks like he's passing the turn with 5. So,
Possibly a shot coming his way.
mm-hmm.
A shocking upkeep, if
Here
you
we
will.
got a gush from Ryan. You think it's possible? I guess given the mana that Rich has, I guess Mishra's Factory and Dust Bowl. I guess I was to say maybe you don't want to play Gush to if like counter spells in his hand, but you're not able to cast it. So Rich goes to
No.
4, and he's gonna pass with 6 cards in hand.
I think that's game.
And yep.
Yeah.
So the Stasis player with some quick black places.
Takes it down.
I will say, like Rich did a good job of putting up a fight, given that draw. Like that is a tough draw
Oh my god.
for the blue-white player, and Rich made a game out of it. So we got gifted subs from BT Hoyer. So thank you. They've gifted seven gifted subs. So they're all right.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask the players to unmute us if you would go ahead and
Yes.
unmute them too.
Yes, I can do that.
All right, there we go.
Hey guys, you've been unmuted.
All right. Well,
Hey,
it was certainly that second game was it was action packed. I mean, like I guess everyone associates Stasis with boring, but I don't know, like the quick black place. But I was impressed on like how much of a game that was, given how quickly those black places came down. I don't know if you ever felt like you were going to turn the corner, Rich, but it was pretty exciting, I thought.
I felt like I was bleeding the whole time. I think that there's a huge difference between this game when he does and does not have an early vice.
Okay.
And the early vice is just brutal. If you think about it from the control player's perspective, the matchup is fine because you have all the time in the world to set up everything you want until he plays a vice.
Mm-hmm.
Once he does that, now he's shifted himself into the aggro position, and you really have to figure out how to crawl out of it without losing.
Yeah, the tough thing is like because you don't, the way you pressure is usually like you can't ever have like one big swing. Like you're not going to kill him in one turn, so you're always having to chip away. And if Stasis ever comes down, that's problematic. And then like so your deck basically devolves to just very few cards, and like it. I think a lot of the games will shape up like how the first one did, where it's just one big setup. You pick your spot, and then there's a fight, and then basically the Stasis player wins usually. But yeah, I think it's a tough matchup, but it was there were a lot of spots where I felt like Rich, you navigated well and almost pulled out of a tough situation.
I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at Ryan's lists and I thought that there was no way he was going to play the survival deck against me.
No, I knew that going from the start as well.
Yeah, and so I looked at the 2 decks that you left me with and thought, which of these is going to be better against Stasis? And this deck I actually have a favorable record against Stasis with. But you played it extremely well, and you put the pieces together, and I boarded in 9 cards, but very quickly my cards stopped having words written on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same exact thought process, even when doing the bannings. I felt that, going with the taking you off of survival, putting you with the 2 control decks, I felt you were either going to ban Stasis or going to ban Enchantress. Those were the 2 that I was going to run either way. When I saw that you banned Enchantress, that pigeonholes me into Stasis, and then I was pretty confident at that point you were going to play Tide.
Right.
So
the reason I banned Enchantress is that Parfait is really good against Enchantress, but my other 2 decks are not good against Enchantress.
Right.
Control loses to a turn to Enchantress, and Enchantress is like custom made to defeat Sly.
So we were talking a little bit before we started, and how I thought it would be fun, Ryan, to watch you play the survival deck, because you're really good with it, and it's a fun deck to watch play out. But I think the only deck I'm more afraid to play against you on than Threadwind Survival is probably Stasis, just given how your experience with it and the epic matchups that I know we've had. So it's as Rich said, well sequenced, well played.
Yeah, thank you. I promise I will get trade one in there. I did not feel this was the week for it.
Probably
not.
Yeah.
I think Stasis is just an underplayed deck in this format. It's a really good deck. It gets a bad rap, I think, for being boring and uninteractive. But as you just saw, it's a hyper interactive deck.
Mhm.
And it's not even boring because it kills you. If you build a Stasis deck that has like one black Vice, then you'll deck yourself a lot of the time. So you actually have to build it with 3 or 4 Vices. And once you do that, you're no longer making your opponent die of boredom. You're actually just getting in a lightning bolt every turn. So the idea that Stasis is either boring or slow or unexciting is really, I just think, not a deserved reputation.
Rich, I gotta ask, was that a subtle dig at the Soul Black Vice that Mike Flores put in his Stasis list?
No, I was thinking of another player who built it.
Because 1, 2, 3 other people picked up on that.
Like, Guy's Blessing is one of my favorite cards. I absolutely love playing the card, and I even tried it in Stasis. It lasted for 2 games before I put it back into my deck building binder, and went back to having a whole bunch of Vices.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll see how it plays out when he gets.
I'm sure that Mike will elect to play that deck and beat me with it. So.
Oh, you got it coming now.
I've absolutely signed up for it.
Yep.
We're here for it too.
All right. Well, yeah, I would say like maybe people were groaning at the beginning of the match, but I thought that was actually pretty exciting, and I think that might have been the quickest match that we had all night. So it wasn't because they weren't games. I mean, I felt like there were interactions and spots where you guys had really interesting
early
decisions.
on we both said, I think I'm going to try to play a little bit fast here, and it's very much like Lantern Control, and I've played a lot of that in the past. Like, my turns don't take very long at all. Like, unfortunately, like, I will go play up to the point where there is going to be one highly interactive turn, and I get to pick a lot of times when and how that happens, but most of the decision points land on the opponent. And I think that Rich did an amazing job. It was two very good games, actually.
Best. Yeah. And those were really fun games. Yeah.
Yep.
I was just informed. I was just instructed to tell everyone that Mike Flores was in the back room at a cabaret when he was brewing his Stasis deck. So sounds like he's making excuses already, folks. We'll see how it goes.
It's Stace-ish, kind of.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Oh,
all right.
Man.
Well, yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Yeah, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you guys so much. Amazing match. Thank you.
And,
have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you again next week. Love you guys.
All right. Sounds
Bye for
great.
now.
all right.
Everybody stay safe.
Yep. Okay, let's bring our schedule back, and we will talk about what we have upcoming. We have our last match of the night. We have Christian Weisner up against Michael Flores, so maybe we will see the other Stasis deck. And Flint and I are going to be back, so we are going to take a quick break as we get our players ready, and we will be back shortly for our last match of the night, so don't go anywhere. We will be back.